Hey guys, it's ETAPRIME back here again. Today we're going to be taking a look at this HP OMEN pre-built gaming PC that I recently picked up on OfferUp for $275. If you're not familiar with OfferUp, it's basically like Craigslist, Letgo, or Facebook Marketplace. People post their items that they want to get rid of. You can offer money for them, or they have a set price. Unfortunately, this one here was set at $275, so I couldn't even make an offer. But after digging into the specs a little bit, I figured it'd be well worth $275 as long as everything works. So I asked the user to upload a video to YouTube so I could see this thing booting up and the time and date. A few hours later, I was able to meet up and pick this thing up. And I gotta say, this is one of the best deals that I've ever gotten on OfferUp. Now, I have bought a lot of stuff in the past on OfferUp, but most of the time, all my deals have fell through because the seller never messages me back. And that's one of the big problems I always run into on these buy, sell, and trade sites. But this user came through, and this is actually a really awesome little PC. This unit came preloaded with a 7th generation i5 7400 CPU, quad core at 3 GHz with a boost up to 3.4, 12 gigs of DDR4 RAM, a 400 watt HP power supply, a 1 TB Western Digital mechanical hard drive, and a 120 GB M.2 SSD to hold the operating system. And to top it all off, the GPU, a Radeon RX 580. Now this is only the 4 GB variant, but it should give us some pretty decent 1080p performance. The whole unit definitely needs to be cleaned up. I need to grab the shop vac out. I also want to add some new thermal paste to the GPU and the CPU, but overall it functions properly and everything seems to be working pretty well. It's got a carbon fiber vinyl type deal to it. We also have a full-size SD card reader, 2 USB Type-C ports, 2 USB 3.0 ports up here, and our audio out. And one thing I thought was pretty cool about this whole case are the 2 hot swappable 3.5-inch drives up top here. Now there's nothing located in here, but I could always add new drives later on down the road. I got a couple 2 terabytes laying around, and I'm not sure if I'll add them to this unit or not. Either way, expanding storage on this unit would be pretty easy. Plus, we also have room for another 3.5-inch drive inside of the case itself. So in this video, I definitely want to test out some PC gaming performance on this machine. If everything goes well and everything's working properly, I will do a full emulation video. And right off the bat, the first thing I thought when I picked this up was turning it into an emulation machine. And I think that's what I'm going to do. With those 2 hot swappable drives up top, I'll have plenty of room for my Launchbox build and thousands of retro games. But for this video, I want to make sure everything's functioning properly and really see how it performs at 1080p. Alright, so here we are. Everything's functioning properly. As you can see, I've went through and installed a bunch of different games to test out. We have that i5 7400 at 3 GHz, 4 cores, no extra thread. So that's going to hurt us in some situations. But I think for the price, I can definitely overlook this. 12 gigs of DDR4 at 2400 MHz. We have 2 free slots, so that means we have 1 8 gig stick and 1 4 gig stick. The 120 GB Samsung M.2, 1 TB Western Digital spinner, and the RX 580 4 GB model. Now, one thing about this rig I wasn't expecting is it already has Bluetooth and AC Wi-Fi built in. I was really surprised to see that when I booted it up. Right now I'm connected over Ethernet, but if I unplug this, we got AC Wi-Fi. Really surprising there. That's definitely a major plus. Now, this is only the 4 GB 580, so it's not going to be super stellar performance, but I think at a $275 price tag, this could be an awesome little 1080p gaming machine. So the first thing I usually do is run some benchmarks. First up, we have 3D Mark Time Spy. Total score, 3,828. Graphics score, 3932. CPU, 3330. Now, I was expecting to get a little higher here, but all the clocks are at stock. Now there's really nothing I can do with this CPU, but I can overclock this GPU because the stock core clock on it is 1266, and I believe with a decent overclock, we could score over 4,000 in our graphics score here. Next up, we have Geekbench 5, single core 864, multi-core 2826. Now just to put this into perspective for you, I recently did about an $800 build with the new Ryzen 5 3600, which is 6 cores, 12 threads. Single core on that, 1187, multi-core, 5833. Now we're definitely way ahead of the 7400 in multi-core because that 3600 does have 2 extra cores and 6 threads. This is just a quad-core machine here with no extra threads. And obviously the 7400 is an older chip, but keep in mind, I paid $275 for the machine with the i5, and I spent about $850 building the other machine with the 3600. But now it's time to see how this rig performs in real-world game testing. So first up, we have CSGO 1080p, high settings, getting an average of around 175 to 176 FPS. I mean, this is more than enough for me. I'd be happy with 60, but we're sitting over 144 FPS, and it'll probably do this all day. Next up, we have Dauntless 1080p, high settings with the resolution scale set to 100%. We're getting an average of around 80 FPS here. This is more than playable for me, and 1080p looks great with this game here, and I've actually been enjoying this game as of late. Here's one of my favorite games of all time, GTA 5 1080p with a high-medium mix. Everything's looking pretty good here. We're getting an average of 100 FPS. It does dip down to around the 80s when there's a ton of stuff going on, but overall, more than playable on this machine. Rocket League 1080p, high settings, getting an average of 196 FPS. It's more than enough for a game like this, and it looks incredible at 1080p. Performance with this rig is actually looking really good with everything that I've tested so far. Here we have Overwatch, Ultra 1080p with the resolution scale set to 100%, average of 120 FPS. Assassin's Creed Odyssey is just one of those games. I had to go down to medium settings 1080p to get a decent frame rate out of it. I used the built-in benchmark, and we got 62 FPS. Far Cry 5, I just used the built-in benchmark here. I think it gives some pretty decent results. High settings, 1080p, not using the HD textures, and I do have motion blur off. Got an average of 73 FPS, which I feel is really great for a rig like this. And finally, for the on-screen testing, I just ran the Red Dead Redemption 2 benchmark. High, medium, low mix. There's a lot of stuff to change in here to get it to run well. At 1080p, this machine averaged 64 FPS. We could drop this down a little more and get better, but I think it looks decent at these settings, and overall performance is great. I went through and tested a few more games, 1080p, high and ultra settings. I gotta say, this is more of a high 1080p machine, but ultra does work out on most of these games I tested. Since everything went well with the PC game testing, I'm actually pretty impressed with this whole setup here. I figured I'd go ahead and test PS3 emulation, but I do have a full emulation video coming up. This is a harder one to run, Skate 3. Still, we have a lot of sound issues, but we're getting a constant 60 FPS on this game, which is really great. There's a lot of different games and a lot of different emulators I want to test in my next video, so if you're interested in that, definitely keep an eye on the channel. I think this is going to perform great. So in the end, I think this is an awesome little machine, especially given that I only paid $275 for it. Now, you can find deals like this all over the place: Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, OfferUp. But before you make the transaction, make sure you can test the rig. Now, I met in a public place and I couldn't really test the machine. So I had the seller upload a video to YouTube showing me that the machine was booting, and he also showed off the time and the date in the video. So I was pretty sure I was getting a functional machine, but you really never know until you can test it yourself. So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I really appreciate you watching. I think this does a spectacular job of PC gaming at 1080p, and I'm pretty sure we're going to pull off some really awesome emulation with this machine also. Like I mentioned, I will have a full emulation video coming up very soon. We're going to test out some PS2, PSP, Wii U, PS3. We'll go with some higher end arcade stuff, and if there's anything else you want to see, let me know in the comments below. I'd also like to know what you guys think about this rig. Should I have just saved that $275 and built my own machine, or did I get a good deal? Let me know what you think down below. Also, if you have any questions or you want to see anything else running on this machine, just let me know. But like always, thanks for watching.